today's video, we're going to be taking a look at all three of our major models, being the European model, the GFS, and the Canadian model, and then we'll be getting into the long-range temperature outlook. Now, as we switch back to the European model, as I for some reason had it on the GFS model, we're going to be taking a look at multiple things, including a very major nor'easter that's going to basically develop over Florida. It's going to make its way sort of over towards the mid-Atlantic here, and this will bring some snowfall potential here for some of the Smoky and Appalachian Mountains. This is going to be a pretty interesting snowfall event. There's going to be a lot to go over with this, so stay tuned with us. In regards to my new computer, if you've been kind of keeping up to date, I am waiting on a new mic and a new mouse for that Apple computer. I'm switching from Windows to Apple, so I have to switch over a few things. Both my mic and my mouse here are USB. The USB A or B, I forget which one it is, and then obviously Mac uses USB C, which both these devices do not use. So I'm waiting to record on my Mac, but I am doing editing on the Mac, so we've already fixed most of our major issues, but I'm just waiting to fully switch over to the Mac here for just a little bit longer. Now let's get into things. I just want to just roll it through with it here. We do see that this low is offshore of North Carolina by the time we're taking a look at Sunday morning, approximately going to be probably about 11 a.m. We could see some snowfall developing, or at least mixed precipitation for a lot of the deeper south here, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee, maybe a bit of kind of inland South Carolina there. And then we could see portions of North Carolina for sure and Virginia. It's going to be a very, very interesting scenario. I think there's a lot of room for busts and a lot of room for overperformance here, depending on what ends up happening. So this is going to be a pretty tough one to forecast properly. I think that there's going to be a lot of folks that are surprised by how much they get or how much they don't get here in this event. This is one of those deals. We see this strong low is in between North Carolina and Virginia there on the eastern side of things. And we have warm air surging on the eastern end, and we have cold air surging on that western end, causing some colder air, and also the elevation is helping here for the Appalachian Mountains, and that's what makes this all possible. As we move on towards about very early on Monday morning, this will be about 2 or 3 or 4 a.m. here on Monday morning, we see that Virginia is getting some last-minute snowfall with this, but we basically come to an end by the time we're taking a look at later on Monday, and we actually follow this up with a bit of cold air here in the east. There's a bit of a trough here, as you can see, and then we have some storms moving in downstream as well. This will be interesting to take a look at also. We will take a look at the total snowfall in a minute, rest assured. We see our big plains storms start to develop, and this is going to be an explosive one, okay? So we have some pretty broad low pressure around here. We are going to see it end up forming on that northern end. And we have a cold front type deal. We're going to have a warm front developing, and that's going to create this warm sector, plus the swinging cold air coming in with this cold front underneath. This is just going to be a recipe for very, very intense weather, to say the least. We will be watching for severe weather in all of these areas in particular, and then across the deeper south as we move on beyond this. So we're going to be taking a look at all of these things. I think even as far north as kind of the Ohio Valley and upper Midwest could be seeing some severe weather. By the time we're taking a look at Tuesday, Wednesday timeframe, that's the 14th, 15th. We can see that we're totally engulfed in a negative PNA, very strong trough out west. So we see the cold air surging down on these portions of the nation, and then we see the warmth doing basically this, causing thunderstorms, warmth overall. It was 75 in Virginia today. I wore shorts and a tank top. It was beautiful. It still is actually as I'm making this video. Today, from the time I'm making this video, very, very beautiful day. We do see another storm already developing by the time we're taking a look at about Wednesday into Thursday. So that's the 15th into the 16th. We'll pause right here. We see this damming cold air behind, causing snowfall for a lot of that precipitation. We see a cold front forming here, just like this. Probably a warm front trying to take place there. Not that long, but you get the point. And then we have this surging warm air surging northward into a lot of these Gulf states, and severe weather will again be possible out ahead of this low. I think there's multiple just really intense looking severe weather opportunities here. Unfortunately, 991 here, strong cold front underneath, clearly defined warm front probably stretching all the way to there. And this is just going to create, again, massive opportunity for severe weather underneath. As this very strong swinging cold front comes through, especially, we'll be taking a look at these things. Now, As we just continue things on, we see this does reach the east. I think this brings some opportunity for thunderstorms as far northward as even maybe New England, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey this time around, because our low is all the way up here. We have a swinging cold front all the way down. And we have this very intense warm front, meaning that we basically have very warm and very humid weather able to make its way far up the east coast here. But this cold front is still extremely intense. So this could be a really strong frontal boundary. We did have one of these. I remember just kind of popping off with some experience here. Last March, we did see a very strong cold front like this. I remember we had very strong thunderstorms here in Virginia, and then we followed that up with snowfall later that evening, and it was a very strong cold front like this with warm air out ahead of it. And this does remind me of that. So I could see very strong thunderstorms on all of these areas here. That's going to be right around the beginning of the weekend. I'd say Thursday to Friday, 16th to 17th for the east here, maybe lingering into the 18th Saturday there. But we'll take a look. This is pretty far out, so take it with a grain of salt. But we'll see if this ends up happening or not. We do follow this up with extremely cold air here in the east, cold enough for snowfall showers across some of these areas as well. And then we kind of begin to see the signs of some warming. We see this taking place here, and I do see the signs of a storm wanting to kind of build in here somewhere, which could again force a warm front to develop, cold front underneath, and we could see the whole thing all over again after this point. But that's at the end of the model run, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, the total precipitation, there's no surprise here that a lot of these storms are going to be moving through these areas. We will see some rising motion just like this as well. And then again, some of these storms for the northwest moving through, but overall, the East continues to be the highlighted portion of the nation through the next 10 days or so. Now, the total snowfall here, we can see we expect some major snowfall across portions of the southern Rockies into the plains, even the upper Midwest with this low pressure system, possibly 10 inches plus, perhaps. And then we have this storm down here. I want to zoom into this just because this is going to be your most unusual, I would say, most unusual snow event that we have showing up here. And as you can see, adjusting, if anything, here in these gray areas, I really think this is going to be mostly just flakes. I'd be watching all of these Appalachian mountain ranges here. I think accumulation is going to be primarily in this pocket here. In other words, I think the higher elevation areas across the Smoky Mountains into Virginia and West Virginia, very mountainous areas, will see accumulations. I think everywhere outside of this very mountainous area here is going to just see flakes or sleet. I don't think this is going to be an accumulating event for very many low elevation areas. I know that might come as a disappointment for some folks, but I'd primarily again be watching these areas in here for the accumulation. Mostly even the blues and purples and pinks. You'd be really watching for those accumulations. We can see even 6 to 10 here in some of these purple areas, and then pink's going to be 10 to 20 here, where we see the very highest elevation areas seeing perhaps 6 to 10, 10 inches plus in a couple spots. That seems to be what's expected, and I really do agree. Now, for the GFS model that we took a look at the beginning, we do see more mixing on this model than we had seen before. This is the perfect time to let you guys know that if you use Tropical Tidbits, the website where you can look at weather models, that their snowfall totals do include sleet. So I want everybody to notice that because Tropical Tidbit maps, especially with this storm, have been showing huge amounts of snowfall when you take a look at the total snowfall. But those do include sleet, and sleet does not fall at 10 to 1 ratio, being 10 inches per every 1 inch of liquid precipitation. Sleet does not fall at that rate. So if Tropical Tidbits is saying 10 inches of snow, but really it's sleet, you're probably more likely to see about 1 inch of sleet accumulation than 10 inches of any frozen precipitation, if that makes sense. Weather Bell here typically does a better job at kind of filtering that out. Obviously, no website is perfect, and that's nothing against Tropical Tidbits either, by the way. They do a perfect job at adding a disclaimer, but I do see people throwing around those maps still. But it's important to note that that is the case. Now, we see the storm move out. Afterwards, we get this very strong event. Again, cold front, warm front here. Definitely could see some severe weather in this particular storm here. We're going to be watching for that. We do see storm number 2 as well here, developing into a very strong 990 millibar low pressure center with a cold front underneath, warm front out ahead, and then again, the snowfall right here for the upper Midwest. So we see that take place. This model will get us a bit further, so I do want to take a look. We do see a bit of a wintry precipitation event, perhaps around Saturday the 18th there with that strong cold front. And then we see a rising storm here out of the Gulf. and perhaps this will become a nor'easter. It looks like it. There's a bit of broad low pressure in this area, and this would bring heavier precipitation along the coast here and perhaps even some wind. There would be pretty much multiple impacts with that. We do see a very strong low develop here, a 975 millibar low pressure center, which is an extremely strong low. We get a big warm sector here on the eastern end, indicating a lot of moisture able to make its way into this storm, perhaps some severe weather on the southeast end of things. Clearly, though, a very, very major snowstorm here for the upper Midwest popping up on our GFS model. Take that with a grain of salt, but we do follow this up with frigid Arctic air in the eastern half of the nation around that 20th or 25th time frame. And then we get some signs of some southeast ridge here, as you can see, taking place. So that's certainly worth noting. I do want to take a look at the total snowfall here as well. I think that's going to be interesting to look at. And yeah, we get absolutely crushed with gargantuan amounts of snowfall from that extremely major snowstorm. Take a look at that in a second. Let's start out though with our southeast area, where again, only 2 to 6, maybe 6 to 10 here popping up on the GFS. But if you were to take a look at tropical tidbits total snowfall, it might even look more like this if I do the 10-to-1 ratio. Nah, not even then. Um, if you were to look at tropical tidbits, you'd be looking at, 6 to 10, 10 to even 15 inches in some of these areas. Whereas when you filter out the sleet, we can see that there's only some areas seeing 6 to 10, perhaps, maybe 2 to 6 in a lot of these darker blue areas. But that's about it. So definitely a much more realistic model here. And then let's go ahead and take a look at the upper Midwest real quickly. Oh my goodness, is that all from the one storm? That can't be right. Okay, so you get one storm here with about 24 inches of snowfall, so around 2 feet in some of these areas across Minnesota, Wisconsin, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. And then you follow that up with another major snowstorm. The second one here at least drops like, well, let's take a look at it actually. We'll take a look at the 4-day snowfall here. So we only get the one storm. So you do get about 25 to 35 inches of snowfall here in Iowa, Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, better yet, Minnesota, Wisconsin, there, even some of Michigan, though, the Upper Peninsula there. Uh, that is very crazy stuff here. And then when we take a look at that total, after all that is said and done, you get 60 to maybe 80 inches of snowfall in some of these purple areas. Certainly take this with a grain of salt. This is the only model I see showing this. Absolutely insane totals here from our GFS model. Just out of curiosity, though, I want to take a look at the 60 model run. And as you can see, we do get 20 inches, but this is the first model run all of a sudden that is showing that type of snowfall. Even the 0Z looks very different. So I'm switching the runs here. That's 0Z, that's 6Z, that's 12Z. So we see it's changing all over the place. And this is what I talk about when I say this model just jumps all over the place. So there's no reason to suspect that this is absolutely going to be true when just 6 hours ago it was showing this. And then 6 hours before that, it was showing this. And then before that, this. So we have it jumping all over the place with these snowfall totals. Certainly going to want to take it with a grain of salt. Now, our Canadian model here, which I think should be up to date. Yeah, it looks like it is. We do have much less snowfall here expected from our Canadian models, actually. Some ice, but hardly any snow. And then we do get these major storms afterwards with this model as well. I just want to make sure nothing crazy, crazy happens there. So let's take a look at the total snowfall on this model as well. Oh my goodness, crushing forecast here from the Canadian model for some southeast snow lovers. We have maybe 2 to 6 inches of snowfall expected in a couple of mountaintop areas here, maybe just seeing flakes across some of the other high elevation areas. So this is just absolutely crushing blow. So definitely we're ranging anywhere from a practically no snowfall to maybe 6 to 10 with 10 inches plus for very high mountain tops. It's going to really depend on a lot. And I think this is a very interesting storm to track as we're only a couple days away. We have the models varying very vastly on what to expect with this storm. Anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe as we do upload every single day, and we're going to continue to track the pattern daily. Be sure to hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we do upload so you never miss it on upload, basically. Also, like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video.